My best friend was using my private financial information to make investment decisions. I found out in a conversation when she mentioned something only I could have told her. What happened when I confronted her changed what I thought I knew about 12 years of friendship. There are conversations with trusted people where you share information that has value. Not sentimental value, real economic value. And most of the time that information is shared from a place of genuine openness without thinking that the other person could use it in a way you had not anticipated. Not because you are naive, but because when you deeply trust someone, you do not calculate everything that could be done with what you tell them. That assumption that trust implies the information is only used for the purposes for which it is given is what my best friend had violated for at least 2 years. Not dramatically, precisely and calculatedly. Using what I told her about my financial decisions as privileged information for her own investments. My name is Claudia. I am 33 years old. I am a certified public accountant specializing in personal finance, and I have spent 4 years working at a financial advisory firm where part of my work is understanding investment instruments and their returns well enough to explain them to clients. My best friend's name is Mariana. She is 34 years old. She is an industrial designer. We met at university 12 years ago. The friendship had survived different cities, different relationships, the successive versions of the two people we had become. She was the person I spoke with most honestly about my life, including my financial life. Because in the context of a friendship, that deep sharing how I was making money decisions did not seem strange to me. It was simply part of the conversation of two adults who knew each other well. The moment that changed everything was a Wednesday during an ordinary call. Mariana and I talked by phone approximately twice a week. That afternoon, the conversation was on various topics until Mariana mentioned she had been reviewing her investments and had noticed that one of her fixed income instruments had yielded a specific percentage in the last quarter. The percentage she mentioned was exact, not approximate, exact. And it was the same percentage I had mentioned to her 3 weeks earlier as an example in a conversation where I explained why I had decided to move part of my savings toward that specific instrument. I had given her that data as an illustration of my own decisions. In a private conversation that should not have reached anywhere else. I asked her which instrument she had that investment in. She told me the name. It was the same one. I asked her when she had made that investment. She told me a few weeks ago. I asked her what had led her to that specific instrument. She took a while. She told me she had read about it. I told her to tell me where she had read, because I was also interested in the sources she used to make decisions. Mariana changed the subject, with the skill of someone who does something with enough naturalness that it does not seem like a change of subject. But it was a change of subject, and I noticed. I hung up with Mariana normally, and I was left with that conversation processing. Not immediately as certainty. First as a question. Was it possible it was a coincidence? That Mariana had arrived at the same instrument through her own research, and that the percentage she mentioned was the same I had told her, because it was the instrument's actual return. Yes, it was possible, but there was something in the way she had changed the subject when I asked where she had read that made the possibility of coincidence feel less solid. What I did in the following days was what I had learned to do at work when something did not add up. Look for the pattern before reaching a conclusion. I reviewed backward the conversations we had had over the last 2 years about my financial decisions. I did not have a record of all of them, but I remembered several with enough detail. The conversation where I had talked to her about a specific investment fund I had evaluated and discarded because the management cost was too high for the return it offered. The conversation where I had explained why I had decided to open a dollar account at a specific moment based on exchange rate projections. The conversation where I had told her I had invested in treasury bonds for a specific term, taking advantage of a rate I found favorable. I started looking for whether there was a way to verify whether Mariana had made similar decisions in nearby periods. I did not have access to her account statements, but I had something. In several conversations over those 2 years, Mariana had mentioned her own financial decisions with enough detail that I could look for the pattern. And when I looked for the pattern, it was there. Not in every case, but in enough for the coincidence to feel different. I did not confront her immediately. What I did was talk to a friend who works in financial compliance and who has the kind of judgment about these things I needed before acting. Her name was Fernanda. I described the situation without giving Mariana's name. Fernanda told me what I was describing was the kind of situation that in the corporate world would be called insider trading if it occurred between company employees. That in the context of a friendship, it did not have the same legal name, but had clear ethical implications. That the person was taking advantage of information that had been given to her in a context of trust to obtain an economic benefit. That was a violation of that trust regardless of there being no contract prohibiting it. She told me the question was what I wanted to happen. Not in legal terms, because in that context legal options were limited. In terms of the relationship and what I needed from the conversation I was going to have. That question took me several days. What did I want to happen? I wanted to understand whether what I had inferred was true. I wanted Mariana to know I knew. I wanted to know whether what she had done was something she had consciously calculated or something that had happened more gradually without her fully naming it as what it was. And I want to know what it said about 12 years of friendship I had believed was one way. The confrontation with Mariana I had in person. We met at a cafe on a Saturday morning. I arrived with the specific example from the previous week prepared. When we sat down, I told her I wanted to talk about something I had been thinking about since our last call. I asked her directly whether she had made the investment in that specific instrument based on what I had told her 3 weeks earlier. Mariana did not respond immediately. She looked at her coffee, and that silence was long enough. When she spoke, she told me yes, that she had, that she was sorry. What followed was a conversation of almost 2 hours that was one of the most difficult of 12 years of friendship. Mariana told me it had started approximately 2 years ago. That in a conversation where I was explaining how a specific instrument worked, she had noticed that the information I had was concrete and useful in a way that what she found online was not. That she had made a decision based on what I had told her. That it had worked. That she had repeated it. That over time, it had become a habit. That she had never thought of it explicitly as using my private information. That she had rationalized it as learning from someone who knew more than she did. I asked her whether at any point she had thought about asking me directly whether she could use what I told her that way. She told me no, that would have implied naming it in a way that made her uncomfortable. I told her naming it was exactly what would have made it possible for me to give my consent or not. That by not naming it, she had made the decision for me. That was exactly the problem. Mariana acknowledged everything without elaborate defenses. She told me she understood what she had done was wrong. That she had taken advantage of something I had given her from place of trust. That if I asked her why she had done it, she did not have an answer that made her feel good. That she had simply done it because she could and because it benefited her and because in the moment she had not named it in the way she now saw it. I told her what I needed to tell her. That what she had done was a specific violation of what trust between us meant. That the information I shared with her in the context of our friendship was not information available for any use she decided to make of it. That information came with the implicit assumption that it existed only in that space of the friendship. That using that information to obtain an economic benefit had taken it out of that space without asking me. And that required at minimum that she understand what she had done with enough clarity that I knew it was not going to keep happening. Mariana said she understood, that she would not repeat it, that if in the future she wanted information about my financial decisions, she would ask me directly. 5 months have passed. The relationship with Mariana exists, but is different. Not because there is open war, but because what I share in our conversations is different now. Not because I do not trust her in any sense, but because what happened showed me that trust requires it to be matched with care about what is done with what is received. And that care had not been present in the way I had assumed. That did not destroy the friendship, but it did change the way I inhabit it. What I wanted to take from this story has practical parts and a more personal part. The practical first. Financial information you share with trusted people in personal contexts is not protected by any confidentiality agreement. That does not mean you cannot share it. It means it is worth being conscious of what you share and with whom, especially if the information is specific and actionable in a way that could economically benefit whoever receives it. The more personal part. Trust does not guarantee that what you share will be treated only in the way you shared it. It guarantees the intention of whoever receives it. An intention is not always sufficient when what is at stake has real economic value. That is not a reason not to trust. It is a reason to be conscious of what trust can and cannot guarantee, and to have the direct conversation when you discover that something was used in a way you did not choose. If this story reached you, comment. Are you conscious of what personal financial information you share in your close relationships, and what could be done with it? Like if you believe using a friend's personal information to obtain economic benefit is a violation of trust, even though there is nothing illegal about it. Subscribe for more real stories. Share with someone who works in finance or who shares economic decisions with people close to them and who might benefit from reflecting on this dynamic. Reflection to take with you. The trust you give someone about a specific part of your life is not automatically trust for them to use that part of your life for their own benefit. Those two things are different, even though in the everyday practice of close relationships, the line between them is hard to see. Seeing that line clearly does not require distrusting everyone. It requires understanding what it really means to trust someone and what it implies to receive someone's trust.